Good evening. Good evening. Welcome. We have a lot of new faces here tonight. I want to thank you for coming tonight. This is going to be quite an exciting night. We do this every Sunday night. We have a number of different kinds of programs. Tonight it's called Freedom Nights in America, and we have a really treat for you. We have two very, very special speakers that you're going to just be fascinated with the miraculous stories that they're telling tonight. But tonight we're going to have, how we're going to handle this is we're going to, here we go, there we go, and we have two speakers, Mary Ciot and Iuliu. There we go. I've been working on those. So, okay, thank you. It's worth it. It takes about 3 days of practice, I'll tell you no. But it's going to be wonderful. First, Mary's going to speak, and then we'll all introduce Iuliu, and then we'll have a panel discussion set up after they speak. They give their stories to you. We'll have a panel discussion. We'll open up for questions, and we can ask them whatever you'd like. Particularly Iuliu, ask them anything. Ask them anything. No, but it'll be a wonderful evening. But let's open up first with prayer, and Pastor has a few comments, and then he'll be Mary, and off we go.
Where's Lauren? I'm going to have, this is Lauren Cangelosi. She's with Turning Point USA Faith, and she's our faith rep for this area. And we partner with them, especially these things. The first Sunday of the night, we do these Freedom Nights in America. We've done several of them. We focus on different issues, and I'll let her maybe say more. Why don't you come up and say a little bit about Turning Point USA Faith and you and what you're doing. Then I'll pray for us. I'll introduce Mary.
Thank you, Pastor Rich. Yes, like Pastor Rich said, my name is Lauren Cangelosi, and I'm the TPUSA Faith Representative of Oregon and Western Washington. And basically, the purpose and mission of TPUSA Faith is to empower and help churches become civically engaged and counter the cultural shifts that we're seeing in our communities. And so we focus on school choice, protecting the preborn, and restoring the nuclear family, and emphasizing God over government. And so we are accomplishing this by establishing small groups within a church, like Bethel Church. They have their small group, and this is why they're hosting this event tonight. And establishing these small groups to help mobilize and network and to help impact the local community, help them attend school board meetings and have events like this tonight to help educate others. And so we've really had a lot of success. We're doing this across the whole country. So this is not just happening in a local area, but across the country. And so if you have any interest in becoming more involved or wanting more information, please feel free to stop by at the table in the back. I can answer any questions. We have a bunch of stickers and pins. If you want any, they're all free. So yeah, that's kind of what TPUSA Faith is about. And again, if you want more information, please stop by at the table in the back.
I forgot to tell you what they're speaking on tonight. And what they're speaking on tonight, as all of us know, we're moving, unfortunately, towards a Marxist, socialistic country. And we've been talking about that in other Sunday evenings about moving towards persecution. Well, both speakers tonight are from a communist country they'll be telling you about. And they're going to tell you how it is to live as a Christian in a communist country. And then they're going to tell you about the miraculous escape they made out of that country and how they got out of there, and then how it is in America, and then how they sort of see things going on in America that's troubling them deeply, which they saw over there. And then maybe we'll have some discussion about what can we do to maybe stop all that. So Pastor, if you want to pray for us, Mary.
Thank you, Jim. So I do want to thank you for being here, and yeah, we're going to have Mary's going to go first, and Iuliu is going to go. Iuliu is going to go second. So I told Jim, you pronounce their names. And we're going to have a little panel discussion up here, and I'll be up there as well. And we're just going to have a discussion where we'll have the microphone going around. You might have some questions, some interaction, but we're going to hear from them first. So I appreciate you being here. That's my friend Adrian. I won't say his last name because there's a way I think to say it, and I'm going to say it wrong. But anyways, he's the pastor over at Journey, and he would be Iuliu's son. And you can join us on the panel if you want to, brother. He's like, no, I don't want to. But you would be welcome. So that's what we're going to do tonight. Okay, sound good? How many of you are concerned about where our country's going? How many of you think that we're going down what looks like a Marxist communist type of a movement? Yeah. What can we do about it? Has it happened before? How did these people escape? What are the parallels that we see from what they're going to experience and what they're talking about tonight to what's happening in our culture right now? So some of those things are going to be things we'll be addressing and talking about tonight, hopefully learning from one another and learning from the Lord. Father, I do want to thank you for tonight. I thank you so much for Mary and Iuliu being here tonight. I thank you for them taking their time. I thank you for the experience that they've had, even though maybe it wasn't fun. It is something that drew them closer to you, and it can be used tonight for us to learn more. And I pray that we would. I pray that we wouldn't just learn to complain about something, Father, that we would learn to think about what our response should be right now. How are we to respond? What is the Christian response? What's going to glorify you? That's what we want to know. That's what we want to do. And as they come up and speak, and Father, Mary's coming up first, I pray that as she comes up and she shares, that we would welcome her warmly, that she would feel loved here, that she would be able to express herself clearly here tonight, and that we would learn from her. And then, Father, I also pray that as this happens, you be glorified, that everything takes place where we would see your work, the work of your hand in every little detail. And touch our hearts. What can we do? How should we go about our daily lives as a result of what we experience and talk about tonight? So be glorified in this, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen. So Mary Ciot is her name, and her husband, Orel. Am I saying it right? I actually did it right. You're just being kind? Okay. They're here tonight, and she's going to come and share, and she has a book back there on a table, and I highly encourage you to consider getting the book. So think about that as she comes and shares with us today. Why don't you come up? I don't want to take all your time. And podium is yours.
Good evening. It was a time in my life when I didn't feel that I have a future. But God turned all things toward good for those who love him. So today, I have a husband, I have 4 beautiful girls, 3 sons-in-law, 7 grandchildren, and 1 is 2 days old. Praise the Lord. I want to give you a little bit of background of how communism came to Romania, and I want you to think about the similarities that you see from my story. After the Second World War, the Russians occupied Romania for 14 years. And the Communist Party became very strong under the Russian occupation, so they helped them get control of the country. In order to get control of the country, they had to be very brutal and eliminate anybody that will stay in their way. So first, they took over the media. Any dissent voice was crushed. Journalists were arrested. And the only media in the country was the communist propaganda. You could not hear anything else. The second thing, they nationalized the means of production. They confiscated the private property of the people, the services, the buildings, everything that was private property, they took it. So even the peasants that had land in the villages, they went there, confiscated the land, and organized it in cooperatives. So the whole village will work for these cooperatives, and they were supposed to get something back from the proceeds. All the people that were owners before and had businesses, and they had, even if they have the perception that these people are going against the communist ideology, they were arrested, they were put in jail, tortured, or sent to forced labor camps. Now, suddenly the government had ownership over everything in the country, and this needed to be managed somehow. So they needed to put people in charge that were loyal to the Communist Party. The only qualification you had to have a position of power and leadership was to be loyal to the Communist Party and to be brutal enough to squelch everybody that will come against the communist ideals. Suddenly, we owned nothing, and we are supposed to be happy because the Communist Party will take care of us. The exploitator class was eliminated, and now we all could be happy. They were telling us that each one of us has to work according to our abilities, and we will receive back according to our needs. The problem was that nobody wanted to work according to their abilities, since the reward of your labor was not according to your abilities, but according to your needs that the government will take care anyway, was no point of working hard. So suddenly the incentive for work was gone. And it started, the economy and everything started to go down pretty fast, so much so that we were joking among ourselves, saying we pretend that we are working, they pretend that they pay us. The third thing that they do, they declare that there is no God, that the country is going to be atheist, the education is going to be atheist, and pretty soon whoever has any retrograde ideas are going to be eliminated. Because of this declaration, a wave of persecution started against the Christians. It was so bad that they were going in the middle of the night, arresting people, put them in jail, especially the teachers, the pastors, anybody that had influence around. And was just a time of terror for the church. The church was obligated to go underground. And even so, the people were getting together in outside the villages, in forests, and getting baptized in freezing rivers. And just so they are together and praise the Lord and try to survive the persecution. One of the, I don't know if you heard about Richard Wurbrand and Sabina. Any of you heard of them? Yeah. So he was a Romanian Jew pastor that was arrested, and he went to prison for 14 years. He was tortured so bad that his back was shredded. The communists were sending messages to his wife that he died so she can marry again. Then they arrested her and sent her to forced labor camp. And after 14 years, the economy and everything in Romania went so bad that they were willing to sell Brother Wurbrand for $10,000 to Amnesty International, that was human rights organization that was willing to pay for his release. So he founded the Voice of Martyrs, if you heard about Voice of Martyrs, and he wrote the book Tortured for Christ. There is Sabina movie that explain and show the torture that he was going through. He even go to the Congress and testified about the persecutions he had in Romania. And I heard that he took off his shirt, and some people were fainting when they saw how they were beaten. news of the atrocities that were happening in Romania reached the Western nations and United States of America, and they started to put pressure on the Romanian government to slow down and make some respect for the human rights. So they decided to change the strategy, and they recruited a whole army of informers that pretty soon the country became a prison, the whole country. Suspicion was in our subconscious that we didn't know who will kill on us, who will betray us. So was this constant suspicious life of anybody. My girls were asking me to write a book, so I wrote this book, From Communist to Freedom, a true story of God's providence. This is the story of our family. And I may not have time to go through lots of them, but I want to tell you just a story of my family. In the city where I was living, my father was leading a group of 20-25 people in Bible studies. He was not an educated man, but he loved the scripture. He almost learned the whole scripture by heart. I remember when I was a kid, he was asking us to read a passage somewhere, and he would say, yeah, that's from 2 Samuel 15, something. And yeah, that was amazing, that his love for the scripture. Even he didn't have theological degrees. I mean, we didn't have seminaries in Romania. Nobody was educated theologically. So whatever they understood from just reading the Bible, that was what they were teaching. So this group of people started to grow, and they needed to expand. They needed a place to move into so they can grow. They asked the authorities to allow them to rent a place, to find another, or to build, or whatever, whatever venue they will figure they are willing to approve. But all their answers were negative. So they were not allowed to grow in any way. So this group of people were talking together and said, well, if we don't have a place to gather together, how can we grow? The people started to come, but in a house, there is this much you can do. So one of the brothers said, Brother Nikolai, why don't you ask the authorities to approve you to build a big house, because you have 10 people in your family and they may approve you for that. And you can have your house downstairs, and upstairs we are not going to do the partition, and we are going to move there as a church. So they decided to do that. We got the approval and started to work. We worked did the bricks from the dirt in our backyard. Everybody was working their hearts out. People were doing labor, whatever they knew, helping with money. So when the house was under the roof, in Romania, to build a house was a lifetime project. It was not 6 months or so. So it took a couple of years for us to put the roof under, and we finished 2-bedroom downstairs for 10 people. We moved in there, and then we didn't put the partition, had just some benches, and the church moved there. Meantime, the church grew over 100 people, and pretty soon, or 200, almost the new building was too small again. So everybody was very excited. We had the celebration, the opening, all that, and we praised God that finally we have a place to get together. But it was not long after We got the first letter from the city saying you have to evict the church and partition the house, and it's $1,000 fine for not doing that from the beginning. So I'm giving you in dollars so you have a better idea what I'm talking about. So the brothers were talking together, what do we do? So they said, you know, maybe if we pay this, they will leave us alone. So they paid the fine, and doesn't go more than a couple of months, and get another letter, evict the church, do the partition, and $3,000 fine. Well, they could not afford, people were poor in Romania. I mean, they could not afford to pay. And they decided, well, we are not going to pay and see what's happening. We didn't pay, and hoping that they are going to leave us alone. Then we received the third letter and said, evict the church, do the partition, and you have this deadline. If you don't do it until then, we come with a bulldozer and bulldoze the house down. That was the scariest of all. I mean, we were 10 people in the family, and in order to bulldoze the church, they had to bulldoze us too. And we were so excited. Everybody was working their hearts out for that church. And it was a pretty scary letter, and we knew that they can do what they say they will do. So the next Sunday, my father read the letter in the church, and one of the brothers said, you know what, we are going to defend the church with our bodies. We are not going to allow them to demolish the church. And they will have to go over us in order to do that. The whole church agreed, and they said, yeah, this is what we are going to do. My father was very moved, looking at those precious people ready to risk their lives to protect the church. But he was terrified at the thought of what can happen. That next week, he went to speak with the man in charge of religious affairs. In Romania, the communists put in each city a guy in charge to watch over the churches, to make sure that nobody is doing anything that it's coming against the ideology of the party. And they were watching over the church. They had their spies in the church. So my father went to him and said, listen, I got this letter. They want to come and demolish the church. And this is the response of my church, what they are going to do. You have to, this is going to be a catastrophe. And you have to think about what is going to happen when this news is going to go in the Western countries. If the Americans are going to hear about this, we are in danger of losing our most favored nation that was very coveted by the communist government. So he said, if you don't care about the church, care about the country, because this is going to damage the country, my father told him. Well, the man was listening and said, yeah, let me see what I can do. So my father came home pretty hopeful, thinking probably they are going to leave us alone. So the deadline came, nobody showed up, nothing happened. We started to be hopeful and excited that finally they are going to leave us alone. But it was not to happen. A few months later, we got a letter to appear before a judge in court to justify every penny that where did we have the money to build a house? Well, in that time in Romania, we didn't have any checks, no visas, no paper trail. Everything was cash, all the transactions, no receipts or anything. But we put the numbers together and justified our portion of the house, because we sold the house that we had before. And my father's salary, everything, all the numbers there, we were okay. And then we explained the judge that the church contributed for the upper level, and that's their part, so we don't have to justify that one. Well, the judge got mad, and he said, I don't care about the church. This is in your name, so you have to justify. Throw us out of the court and ask us to come in a few months later to justify. So they started to harass us with this court proceeding for 10 years. We thought that this is never ever gonna end. It made life miserable. So at one point into the 6-7 year of these proceedings, I was thinking of my life, and I'm thinking, you know, there is no hope to get out of this. They are not going to let us. And I didn't see any future. I didn't see what can happen with, you know, I didn't see how you can get married and have a family in those situations. So I heard that people are leaving the country, some of them running the border, some of them applied for passports. And was so scary, because if you want to run the border illegally, they have soldiers every 300 feet, 300 yards with guns, with orders to shoot whoever tries to run the border. If you want to apply for a passport, the minute you apply for a passport, you are considered a traitor of the country. So you never knew what they can do to you being considered a prisoner's person. So I was struggling. I didn't know much about outside world, because this was like our prison. It's just what you hear from here and there. The propaganda was that in America, the youth is laying in the street with no hope, doing drugs. We started to listen to Radio Free Europe, that was American sponsor to broadcast into communist countries. So I started to get a little bit of a different idea that compared with the propaganda that we had on our media. So as I was struggling, and I said, Lord, what should we do? I mean, trying to cross the border with the family was almost impossible. And as a woman, you know, you go, and you don't know where you are going. You don't know what's going to happen. So that was pretty scary for me. And trying to apply for passport was scary too. So I started praying, and I said, Lord, show me what to do. If this desire in my heart is to leave the country, please find me a husband on the other side. And it was not more than a month after these prayers that I received a letter, and it was just a blank piece of paper, and said, I heard about you and your family, that you are children of God. I am a child of God too, and if you want to know me, write me back. So I was looking at that letter, you know, and I'm thinking, yeah, God wants us to go. He has in plan for our lives to leave the country. So we start applying for the passports. And then I think I am over my time here. I'm okay? Okay, so we applied for passports, the whole family, and it took 3.5 years of interrogations, being threatened with jail. Nobody will hear about you again. They will say, you are going to come back and to the border in kneeling and asking us to receive you back, and we are not going to let you back in the country once you are gone. All kinds of threats against us. After 3.5 years of going through this, finally we got the passports and we came to America. Now, there are lots of stories in my book, and I'm writing here the story of my husband too, that, in parallel in the time, because he left the country 4 years before me. And we were corresponding snail mail for 3.5 years. A letter will make 3 months back and forth. So even if we wrote each other every week, still I would not remember what I asked 3 months ago. The phones were not affordable. It was $3 a minute in that time, and he was working for $3 an hour. So I just want to, I will answer more questions later, but if you want to know our story, I have my husband's story too from the beginning, and our stories and how we got here. But God blessed us in the United States more than we ever dreamed. We worked hard here. We took advantage of any opportunity that was open to us. And God is good.
Mary, thank you so much. That was wonderful. And we'll have Pastor pray for you and Iuliu when we're done. That's incredible. We'd love to hear you for another hour or two. But Iuliu, his talk is only, 3 hours long? No. But thank you so much. That was wonderful for talking from your heart. And it's also show how God is good. So, Iuliu, we're going to have Iuliu come up and Iuliu come up, and he is an incredible guy. I know him. He's my neighbor, and he's a missionary and a pastor, and he goes down to Mexico and starts churches. He even builds churches. He brings thousands of eyeglasses to the people down in Mexico. He goes down there, I don't know, 2 or 3, 4 times a year. I mean, it's just he's a wonderful, wonderful Christian man. And most of all, he's our neighbor and our friend. So why don't you come up and tell your story, Iuliu.
Hello, everyone. When Mary was spoken, my mind running all over because I have so many similar stories. I have so many things which I remember, and I start getting emotional, and I kind of went back 40, 50 years back when we used to live in Romania, and I thought, wow, what a big memories. And far as the churches go, in 1985, 86, 87, my wife used to work for Campus Crusade for Christ International down in San Bernardino, California, for Dr. Bright, and just happened to meet that wonderful pastor, Dr. Bright, and when the communism failed in Romania, they make a contribution and make a donation And they put a bunch of money in my hands, and he said, okay, go in Romania and help the poor. And we changed everything in the black market back in Romania at the time, and we make a big sack of cash. And believe me or not, we dressed ourselves as a homeless, and we got a really beat up car and go from village to village to nobody knew what we have in our bag. And we went to the churches what was being demolished by the communists, and we bring some money to help them rebuild them. And we went from a family who have a large family, multiple kids, or their husbands, they've been killed or maybe disappeared by communist country, and help them out with the cash. And I just focus on what Mary said and say, wow, it's amazing how the things was working out at the time. Now, I ran away from Romania in 1983. And many people, they think, well, I'm going to run to freedom, and I'm going to be so happy because I'm going to be free. Well, I have to admit, I have a news for you, which already know you. The freedom is not free. For the freedom, somebody have to fight, and somebody have to pay the price. And we experienced that back in Romania in a very, very hard way. I was working as a crane operator for the Romanian army. And I was built with that crane the most secret places where the army had in Romania. And after so many things that I built down there, I ran away from Romania. I forced the border. And I have in the back my wife's story and my story and my wife, how I get out of Romania. You can see it right there on the right side. It's some flyers, 2 pages. Because in 1990, when I got my citizenship, from World Challenge magazine, there was a writer. There was a Campus Crusade for Christ writer. They came in our home and interviewed us, and that's how they make our story. And it's kind of love story in a way. It's a drama story, but it's my story, how I escaped and how I came in America. It wasn't pretty, wasn't easy, but with God's grace, we made it. Now, was thousands of people who have the dream what I have, but they never made it. You run away from Romania, whether you are forced the land and you end up on the other side, or you swim to the Dunav River in Yugoslavia, and on the other side of the Yugoslavia, it's a big cemetery with unknown names. Nobody knows who's in there. And there are thousands and thousands and thousands of young Romanians who was killed, who they tried to get out of Romania. And so many of you and so many Americans who they never experienced that, they may ask in their mind, why? Why you risk so much? What pushes you so hard to and risk your family? Because when I get out, because was so many people who was watching, if you just because you're Christian, they're watching your house. They're watching when you go in, they're watching when you come, they're listening who you talk to, and if you have an influence on the people, or if you try to make a coup against the Communist Party, and they will arrest you immediately, then you didn't trust anybody. I didn't trust my father-in-law. I didn't trust my mother. I didn't trust my wife. They tell them I'm going to leave Romania. And I have to leave my wife, and I have to leave my 2 children with never knowing I ever going to see them again. But I have to pay that price and take that step in order to be free. So what happened in Romania at that time was very, very interesting, because first step what the communists do, they try to indoctrinate the children. I was born at the countryside in a village. And I have a very, very good, solid Christian parents. They was ready to die for Christ any minute. They didn't care. They loved Christ so much, they was ready to sacrifice their life for Christ. And I learned that. And my sisters, we learned that from the parents. That's how we grow up. That's how we taught to love Jesus and no sacrifices too much for the love of Christ. And I remember going to school. I was just a regular guy going to school. And just because my parents was Christians, they didn't allow me to learn too much or to go too far in my studies. Because as a Christian, you cannot have a high position in the society. As a Christian, you cannot know too much. Because if you know too much, later on, you're going to be danger for the communists. And they try to keep you in the box, not to have too much influence, not to know too much. But thanks God for voice in the radio. It's called the Free Europe, which sometimes we have those really radios which we don't have we cannot catch it, but we go on the top of the hills and we have that reception and we get that Free Europe and we get that information what's going on outside the world. Because the communist country, they didn't care really who come in. They care nobody to go out to bring the voice to know exactly what's going on outside. They want to keep us in that box, in that circle, to be manipulated. That's how they do it. Another thing, what they did, and they are, you know, all these communist countries, what they do, they don't let you think for yourself. They create a system which you have to follow that system. The schools, the patriotic songs, the teaching of the children, everything what was going on was praising the communists. How beautiful is the communist? How beautiful is the system? How beautiful, nobody like us. We are the greatest. That's what they try to influence. That's what they try to tell our children. And nobody liked that. Nobody liked that because we knew it's something better in a word that what they try to tell you. I remember what my father and my mother told me when they got baptized. That was maybe, 8 years ago, 7 years ago. Because it was illegal to get baptized. Romania is in a parallel 46. And in parallel 46, there are 4 seasons. And in February is the season of winter, and it's very, very cold. The rivers are freezing, the lakes are freezing, and the only way to get baptized was a night in the winter in those rivers, which the ice was just about 4 inches thick. So what they did in one night, 3 families, my father and my mother and 2 other families, take the pastor at 2 o'clock in the morning in February. They went to the river called Somesh and going over the hill on their feet, walking there. They busted the ice open and they get baptized in that river, all of them, and receive that baptism and express their faith. Was nobody, just the moon and the stars, and they receive that blessing from God by being baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, and they follow Christ ever since. And nobody got cold, nobody got sick, nobody was anything, because God was with them and protected them, and they didn't feel anything. So, few weeks later, somebody leaked that event. And the police came after my father and my mother. And they didn't have other reason, just because they crossed the street on the other side. They have their animals, they have their chickens, they have their little ducks, whatever they have in there, and they take the animals over that little road every single day for years and years and years. But the police came, because you crossed the road, you pay $1,000 fine. just to humiliate them, just to tell them the message, you don't do anything against the government, because whatever you do, it's against the government. When I got baptized in 1977, I got baptized in somebody's home, in somebody's tub, because it was still almost illegal to do that. They try to stop not to let you do that, because they say if you get baptized, if you have too many friends, if you go too many times in a church, and by the way, go in the church. Everybody work for a government, and everybody have a job, some kind of job. Everybody have an apartment, they have their own box, and they don't let you have too many houses or too big of a house. As Mary said, was a struggle and was a problem to build a house. So they put you in an apartment, they give you that way to live, but you have to work all your life for government. And they pay you enough. But if you go to the store, stay in line for 3 hours to get a 1 liter of milk. By the time you get in there, no more milk. Stay in line for so many hours to get a bread, and no more bread. Stay in line for oil, no oil. Was no food in Romania. Now, if you are working for government, you have everything you want. If you are a member of that party, you have everything what you want. But if you are a Christian, they try to squeeze you so much and humiliated you to give up on that Christianity and change your life and say, you know what? Okay, I become communist, I become socialist, I embrace your ideology, and just leave me be. And you know what? Wasn't that bad. But you're not free. You cannot go outside of the walls of Romania. Just like you know, it's one of these apple, which it's all rotten inside. It's this worm in there. He doesn't know what they're life. Once he get out of there, wait a minute, it's something better than that rotten apple. So that's exactly what we've been trapped in Romania. So I decided, because I worked in Romania, I work as a crane operator, as I said. I saw the way the country going. At that time, I wasn't really Christian. I was a young kid who didn't care too much, but just because my parents was Christians, I was persecuted just like one of the Christians. And I saw in a way the government is going, in a way everything is going, and I told myself, this is not going to be good. I'm going to change something. So I decided to run away. I ran away to the bullets. They tried to kill me. Barbed wires, gates, all kinds of traps. I ended up in Yugoslavia in one of these refugee camps where many people was killed because all kinds of people was there. The secret police from all these countries, the communist countries, they infiltrate their people in these camps. And whoever they wanted to be killed, they would be killed in those camps, and so many people was killed. But we have that hope that in one day, all this is going to be over. So what the Romanians did, waited for the right timing, and the country rise up and say, you know what, we are done with this. So they change it, they have a revolution, and they change all that in Romania. And one other story, all the young people, they have to go to army at 19 to 21, 1 year and 6 months, you have to go in army. And I remember first question what they ask you when going there in the army, are you Christian? Do you have relatives or you know anybody in the west of the somewhere in Germany or America or whatever in West? And if you do have any of this, yes, they will send you in a labor camp. That's exactly what happened with me. Instead of being soldier, to be trained to stay against the Russians or whoever has come to occupy our country, they force us to work 8, 10, sometimes 12 hours a day And you have your AK-47, but all you have to do is just to keep a shine. In this 1 year and 6 months, I never saw one bullet as a soldier. I never shot anything because they don't want you to know how to shoot. They don't want you how even to operate that gun. All they care, they come and inspect it, make sure that gun is spotless, clean. And you have that big shovel and that pick, and you go dig every single day as a humiliation, as somebody who you need to be taught how the Communist Party treat anybody who is not like them, and it's a Christian. So the communists, it's a really danger path, because they don't care about people, they care for their ideology. So the ideology, it's evil, led by the spirit of darkness, and Christianity is led by the Holy Spirit. And later on, as I came to America in 1984 and January 12, I came to America, and ever since, for over 40 years, my wife and I, we work hard. We work hard to achieve that American dream. And thanks God, it's not a dream anymore. We achieved it. We made it. We've been blessed more that we ever dreamed. And all this because we work hard and we stay focused in a church. Later on, I become a pastor in a Romanian community. I co-pastor the Philadelphia Romanian Church here in Vancouver for 17 years. Then I tried to teach my children, and my wife and I, we tried to grow up our family the best we could. And thanks God for His help that we grew up a good family. We have our son, Adrian, over here, who's the lead pastor at Junior Community Church. Then we have another son who's a CRNA for Kaiser Permanente. He works in California. And yeah, we did something for this society. And we just want to thank God for that. What I decided to do, because it was so hard in Romania to have a Bible. That's another thing. If you was caught by smuggling Bibles in Romania, automatically you would have been arrested, you would have been thrown in jail, and if you try to kind of argue with them and look for your rights, you would be disappearing. You never know. They will be killed, disappearing. I don't know what they did with you, but you will disappear. So, because it was so hard to to have Bibles in Romania and Christian literature, in my heart start having that verse from Matthew 28, last verses, go all over the world, preach the gospel, baptize in the name of Father, of Son, and Holy Spirit, and teach him everything what I taught you. That's the great commander of Jesus. So I started going as a missionary. 9 years in Ukraine. In the southern Ukraine, close to Odessa region, there's a lot of villages in there who they speak Romanian. So in 9 years' time, I was missionary in there. So my mission was done there. I started in Mexico, Guatemala, Colombia, Costa Rica, Panama, and a lot more. So I started with Bibles. Then the Bible was too heavy and too costly. Then I downsized at the Gospel of John. The so cool, small, nice Gospel of John, which is easy to read and easy to just give as a gift to the people. And that you find Jesus Christ in Gospel of John very, very quick if you read it. And if somebody asks for more, you can give them a full Bible. So at the first couple of missions, I realized people cannot see. So I started digging left and right, and I found a great organization who provide me reading glasses for very, very low cost. And I started ordering reading glasses and the Gospel of John with the pallets. 5,000 at a time, reading glasses, and 5 or 6 or 10,000 Gospel of John. Second one, 10,000 reading glasses and 10,000 Gospel of John. And going in all this country, and most of the time, we smuggle them from different ways because we avoid, because even in this country, sometimes it's very hard to go to the Bibles. It's very hard. And for last 6 or 7 years, I'm doing this with God's help, and it's so many people. How I do it? We have Bibles or Gospel of John, reading glasses, a plate of food, and I have my Mexican pastors who speak the language and preach the gospel of Christ. And people come to Christ with many, many, many people, many number of you don't believe it. Every other month, they baptize in Mazatlan, Mexico, 60, 70, 100, 60, 70, every other month. It's a cycle because we have something to, some kind of hook to get people in a house. And once they're in a house, the gospel of Christ change people all the time. So this is my story, and I have in the back my story on a piece of paper. You can have one and read it, take it home and read it. And also, I have a nonprofit organization called American Way Ministries. I have some business cards in there. You can take a look at it and see what's out there. You can know more about it. And with that, I just thank you, all of you, for coming here tonight. And I encourage you not to let all these politicians fool you with their stories. In order to stop what's coming, we have to fight. So we don't need to pull our guns. That would be too easy. But when you go to the ballot box, vote all these people out and put somebody who's decent, who's honest, who's man of Christ, and they will do good for this country, for our cities, for our children, and for our children. God bless you all. Amen.
Mary, if you'd like to come on up, and we'll move this forward. Now, Iuliu, I've known as a neighbor. He's told me so many stories. I wish we had another hour or two to tell some more, but I know all of you have some questions. And so what we're going to do is, Pastor, if you want to grab one here, why don't we... Pastor, if you'd like to sort of lead a little discussion there, and I'm going to run around with Mike if people have questions.
Well, yeah, we want to let you have the opportunity to ask some questions. We're grateful that you're here, and I'm grateful to you, Iuliu and Mary, for being here as well. And one question I was thinking of, maybe I don't know what other people are thinking, but I'm trying to figure out how to phrase the question in the best way. But if you look at our country today, what are things you see happening here that remind you of what happened in Romania? Is there anything that looks like a parallel to you that we should be aware of?
Well, one thing what I saw was a similarity. They will try to indoctrinate your children. That's exactly what they did in Romania that time. They're very, very slow and very sneaky. They come to your children and they indoctrinate it of the ideology of, they don't say communism or socialism, but they are doing exactly the same thing what they did. Once they control those children's mind, later on when they grow up, they will vote for the communists, they will vote for their ideology. That's what I see in that aspect, and it's a lot more. For instance, in Romania we don't have guns at the time, and they didn't give us a bullet. Now over here, they try to strip us from the Second Amendment. You cannot own the gun, you cannot own the bullets, you cannot own anything because they are afraid. Because that Second Amendment was created to fight against the government. If they come and try to change and take your rights away as a citizen. That's how I see it.
I think, yeah, that's very important what Iuliu said. I think the media, it's another part of the similarities. They suppress the ideas that are not conforming with the new ideology. So pretty soon, if God allows, God forbid, I hope they are not able to take over the media totally, like in Romania, because at one point we didn't have any other news than whatever they were telling us. And it went so far that, as Iuliu said, we did not have the right to think for ourselves. We were told what to do and what to think, and you better don't have your own ideas of anything. So the media, I think it's another thing that it's a little...
Well, that way, how many of you think they're indoctrinating our children in public schools? Okay. How many of you think the media is becoming more and more... Okay, I won't even finish the sentence. You're already there. Yeah, there's something I wrote down that you both had in common. It's like they take over the media, indoctrinate the children, and the worldview is based on atheism. So how many of you think that third thing is also taking place in our country? So one thing I'm curious about, I have had many people say, Pastor, I know you're concerned about this, you talk about this, it can't happen in the United States. So do you believe we're foolish to think, or those people are foolish to think, that it cannot happen in the United States? Can it happen here, do you think?
You know, I think in Romania went faster because it was helped by the Soviets, was kind of imposed on us. Here, I think it's a little slower, but the people are, there is a spirit of deception that is going over the country, and people don't understand what's going on really, and start to believe the lies of the left media. Even all this, another thing is all this division between us for identity, politics, sexual identity, whatever, how many identities we have now, and everybody is offended of everybody. So in Romania we had the exploitators class and the working class. And propaganda was that we, the working class, were the revolutionary that got rid of the exploitators, so we should have been good. But here now we have so many divisions in so many places, so many identities, and all of those are imposed by the media, and that's exactly what it is.
Absolutely right.
Okay. Thank you. My theory has been validated.
Okay. Who has a question?
Does anyone have a question? Want to raise your hand? Have a question or thought that I see hands.
Okay, here we go. Okay. Excuse me.
Was homeschooling illegal, or was it just dangerous?
Yeah, I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it.
Was homeschooling legal or just dangerous?
No, was not legal. You have to take the school to public schools, and all public schools had the atheistic education.
You got to use the mic. People can't hear you.
But if you
back
can hold your mic up, sorry.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
there. So we didn't hear you, Mary, so say it.
Yeah, so now we're no homeschool or private schools. Everything was government schools. You had to send the kids to school, and all education was atheistic. So you didn't really have a choice. But you know what's interesting? All our lives, we were taught that there is no God. We were treated as Christians. We were treated as second-class citizens. But we always knew that what they are saying, it's a lie. So even if we didn't have the power to fight it as children, we knew that they are lying. So whatever you are taught at home, what the proverb says, teach a child the way it should go, and when it's old, it will not depart from it. Well, I knew that God exists. I knew that they are lying. And you just go through life as well as you can as a Christian without getting arrested or, try to survive.
As far as the school go, over here in America, I learned, and I heard my grandkids saying, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, so on and so forth. You learn that in school. Back in Romania, even now, I remember songs, what they taught me in a school and a grade school about the communism party, and I know all the words, how great and how good and how wonderful that communist party it is. They didn't care for you to teach you how to read, how to do the math, how to do geography. We all learned that in a way, but there was more important to teach you their indoctrination and their ideology to make sure the next generation is going to be, communists. So that's what they did. That's what they did. So far as the private school, not even close. You cannot have a private school. If you will try to teach somebody something different what the government did, you are in big trouble. Jail time, and nobody see you guys again.
Okay, we got a question over here.
So you talked about how propaganda was everywhere while you were growing up in Romania. Here we experience propaganda every day, but I think that people tend to be a little bit naive about it. Can you give us some ways to recognize propaganda when we see it and how to counter it?
I'm gonna try to say it in the way I see it. I may be wrong, but this is how I see it. All these people who come on TV, different channels, they're gonna tell you what you want to hear. They're gonna tell you stories, gonna bring somebody in one level, and they try to grab somebody else down because they're gonna come with some kind of story or some kind of experience which is not true. So one thing, if it's too good to be true, that's a false, that's a lie. If something is too obvious, it's not true, it's a lie. So you and I, with a clear conscience, because why with a Christian we are so dangerous? Because we don't drink, we don't do drugs, we are clear mind and always stay focused, and you cannot be manipulated by all these people. So because you cannot be manipulated, they'll try to force you one way or the other to change your mentality. So we are dangerous for that and many other reasons. So I don't think the government, they may think these Christians, they don't know much, but they're wrong, because Christians, first, we are led by the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is the one who takes us to a whole different level. We have a relationship not with the government. We have a relationship with Christ, which is the most important relationship what any Christian need to have. Now, the non-Christians and the guys who always in the la-la land, they can be manipulated the way you want it. Or if you headed to some party, whatever you are in, Democrat or Republican, yeah, you have some kind of things, and you have a points, you have a presentation, you know where you're going because you have your agenda. But as a Christians, we need to have that Holy Spirit, we need to have that Bible, and we have to have a God on our side, and we have Him. And that's what I think about it.
Thank you. Mary?
I think, just a sec, I think,
go ahead.
yeah, I think if you know the truth, you will recognize the lie. So since we have the truth, even I'm pretty sure most of you, if you watch the news, you know what is false and what is true. There is just one truth, and that's Jesus Christ. Outside that,
Okay, other questions?
Hi.
Well, but there's someone behind you first, but maybe afterwards we get this gentleman.
We left Canada a little over a year ago. And I don't think, I'm from the US, my husband's Canadian and a peacekeeper. And we experienced what you experienced because C-10 has just passed the last reading of Senate to censor the internet in Canada. So you will no longer be able to have, it only is be the truth that the government allows. And they are creating government partnerships with all the corporations. They're crashing the housing system because you don't get a mortgage for 30 years, you get a mortgage for 6 years or 4 years or 5 years and you renegotiate. So they're raising the rates at a massive speed. Our daughter had the police called on her because they met with young people in front of a church because they shut the churches down for almost a year and a half. And some of them called themselves mental health groups to be able to even meet. And so our daughter had the police on her. When she went to an outside praise thing, we told her if you're arrested, just don't fight. And I just don't think, like, it's at the border because what we have there, and we left, because anyhow, we left, but it is there, and the guns are being taken. And the neighbors we were facing $2,500 fines if we had people in our home. Our older children refused to come to our home for Christmas. And I still allowed kids in my home because I wanted to minister to them. But we were if our neighbors had turned us in, we could have been a $2,000 fine. But God was faithful to have good people around us. So we were under like extreme oppression, which was, COVID was used to implement these new laws in Canada. And the school system and parents are being arrested for not calling their children. If they are a girl, they call them her. If they don't call them he, they're being arrested. Or they're called family violence. Christian man, we have doctors, 22 Canadian doctors, about losing their license for helping people and fighting for their health in the country. We are the second largest organ producers of the people going in for MAID, which is assisted suicide. They're taking their organs and they're donating them, and we're only underneath China. So, and doctors are now being forced to offer suicide to people across the country. My husband's a veteran, and we had a veteran that was offered MAID because he had injuries in his hand. So it's right here. It's here, and I just wanted to let you know that we just like.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank
wow.
you. Thank you.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right across our border. That's
Yeah.
right across our border.
Right,
Thank
yeah.
you. And I'll
Thank
give
you.
and then I'll go back to here.
No, thank you. Thank you very much
I would
because.
like to ask you, is this going on a federal level or on a provincial level or both? What's happening here, at least in this state, it hasn't gotten quite to the point, but we now have a bill before the Washington State Legislature that if it passes, and it's in the process right now, if it passes, it will create a misinformation and disinformation board under the Attorney General's office. And basically, whatever you say that doesn't agree with the mainstream narrative, they will. In fact, I'm just writing a letter to all of my legislators, which all of you can do if you take the time to. All you have to do is get on the legislative website, and you can find all of your legislators, and you can follow these bills, and you can make comments and form groups. Better yet, so yeah, I mean this is yeah.
I think one thing we know is, and I think we believe here, is that it is happening here. It is coming here, and it's been here. It's ramping up, and I think we also. How many think it's ramping up? And we could talk testimony after testimony of that. So I appreciate the testimony, but I actually think we believe that. I think that's one reason you're here tonight, is that it is happening. One question I have as we look for other hands up, what can we do about it?
Well, the Christian will do what he always did, trust God. Pray, and we need to grow in our relationship with Christ, because we don't belong on this earth. We belong to Jesus, and I believe he's coming soon. Amen. So
I do too.
Brothers and sisters, friends, get ready for his coming.
Amen.
Yeah. Well, excellent. And we can do things too. We need to pray. That's the most important, powerful thing we do. But I think that was HB 1333, wasn't it? Yes, sir. And so we can do things like that to do. We can still do things too, but there's the most important thing, Iuliu, like you're saying, is prayer. And that's why every Tuesday night we meet in this church to pray for this country. Okay, here's a question right here.
In China, Mao tried to elevate himself to a demigod, and he had the Little Red Book of Mao, which was essentially trying to replace the Bible. I'm just wondering, in Romania, if they had somebody trying to fill that position, and did they have some kind of book in terms of their way to indoctrinate you?
Interesting.
I didn't get all of that either. It's kind of hard up here because it's a little bit.
Oh, was it? They said in China, Mao had a little red book that he took. He didn't use the Bible. It was his idea. This is what he wanted. He believed he was the God, so he wanted people to study his book. Was there something like that in Romania where they wanted them to be the God, and they had a book that you had to read?
Some sort of equivalent to Mao's little red book.
The Ceausescu was very much considering him as a god in Romania. If you open the TV, we had watched just one channel, and he will be all over. They will say, this is the most beloved leader of the people. He is the smartest. He can lead us into a bright future. We are going to pass by Americans, with speed, leave them behind. And I mean, we were on a Russian portion for food, and propaganda was so, deceiving you to your face. Because the situation was so bad that before I left the country, we were on a portion card. So you could go and buy, a liter of oil a month or whatever was on there, but you go there and you don't find it. So you stay in line, as Iuliu said, sometimes 2 hours, get a piece of butter, and you are happy. You go home very happy. I never got happy here, getting a piece of butter. But there I got happy many times after 2-3 hours in line when I got something, whatever that it was.
So they do have a book. They create a book for their ideology, communism, socialism, how to teach you, how to indoctrinate you, how to go by. And if anybody followed that book was good, anybody go against that book was against the communists, and you get in trouble pretty quick.
I heard somebody said Patriot 80.
Hello, everybody. So that's my father there. And I felt compelled to say something too. So I look around the room, and the striking thing that I see is there's no young people, right? If you look, there's a few. Thank you, guys, right? And I think that that's where we are losing the battle. The young people's minds are getting corrupted. They're buying into all of it. They're just hook, line, and sinker. They're believing everything. When I went to college, which was granted 20 years ago, the number one thing my college professor said, you are here to learn critical thinking skills, to think for yourself. Today, that's no longer the case. People go to school to be taught, exactly like they were saying, what to believe and how to believe it, and they're just eating it up. So I think one of the strategies for us going forward, to not end up like that, because I grew up in that, I remember those days when after my father ran, I mean, oh my gosh, people would come to our house and threaten my mother and threaten us, and I was a kid, and I remember just crying in my room like, what is happening? Our world is shattered. And these kids here, Mary's kids, they could probably share stories of the same. But the point being, our young people, that's how we have to come up with strategies. Okay, how do we mobilize young people? How do we have honest conversation with these young people? And how do we try to enlighten them to see, man, we're headed to destruction. We're headed to destruction, and I think it's now. I think it's happening.
I agree, and just to encourage you, we actually do bring this up with our youth, by the way. And we should bring it up with our youth, right? We should be talking to our children. Parents need to be talking to children. Grandparents need to be talking to children. We need to maybe get our children out of the public school if we think they're at risk. But we need to make sure that but we do need to have that conversation. I agree with my brother, absolutely. And just to encourage you, that actually is happening at some level. They don't tend to come to Sunday night things, but perhaps they should. Maybe we need to go to them more directly.
Yes, that's good. What, a couple more questions here.
Yeah, how much does the belief in evolution fit into the communist plan?
Well, evolution was the gospel of the atheistic education. Was not accepted any other view.
Okay, we have maybe time for one or two more questions. And
Just a couple more, and we need to close pretty soon.
Yes, right. Okay.
Since you were talking about 1333, there's things that we can do, and I'm going to have Jordan read off his paper to tell you, and everybody write this down. This is a legislative hotline that goes directly to any of your legislators where you live. And he's got the phone number, he's got the bill, and this week, for us to save this country, that bill is so important because they're going to label us as terrorists. And Bill Gates is the biggest one. He lives in this state, right? So the most important thing is that we need to call all of our legislators by this hotline, which Jordan's going to give you the phone number. And secondly is the fact that we need to share what's happening. And obviously, when you need to turn your TVs off. Don't watch TV. That is the biggest television. You're getting the vision of what they want you to know. And you don't have to watch it. I didn't have a TV for 10 years, and when I moved up here 3 years ago, someone says you have to have a TV because if there's a fire, you're going to have to escape and you need to know what's happening. And I thought, okay, I put one on, but I don't watch it. I watch good stuff, wholesome things, but most of all, there is so much we can do. And one thing you don't understand is Vancouver right now got rid of their citizen forum. You are not allowed to speak at the city council your 3 minutes. They're going to have 4 times a year off campus, not at the city council. It's not going to be televised. They're going to pick the subject you get to talk on. And they also prohibited protesting. So we were going to protest about the genderqueer book, and you can only protest in front of the city council and the park across the street because people don't watch their city councils. They don't keep up with the current events. The most important thing you can do is watch your city councils. And secondly is the fact you've got to get involved. Because if people don't do this and don't share this information, you don't know. How many of you knew here that you cannot protest in Vancouver? 1. How many people knew that you don't be able to speak at a city council? And you don't think the communisms are here? They're here. But this one thing I want Jordan to tell everybody, write this down because it's very important. He's going to tell you a telephone number you call. And you call it, it's a legislative hotline, and it goes directly to your legislators of your area. And secondly, what we have to do is that on Friday at 8 o'clock, they're going to be voting on the Convention of States. If they get enough people, 2/3 majority of this, they can wipe out our Constitution. So if you believe in freedom and you believe in the Constitution, we all have to get involved. So he's going to give you the number.
Do it fast, please.
I will meet with people in the back after. I actually have a question more on how the people actually rose up and took back.
Could you speak on how the people rose up
Yeah,
and took back control?
Well, what happened, because they was starving, because they don't have the right to drive on every Sunday. And one Sunday, they drove an import number on their car, and they squeeze it so much. People, they say, we have enough. So whole country, all of a sudden, every single city, all of them rose up, and they go towards the government, and you know what happened. Ceausescu was dead, and whole thing was changed. So this is what happened in Romania. Can be a good example. I won't suggest it to be here because it's going to be more complicated. But the people, they had enough, and they rise up and change the government. Because we, the people, here in America and all over we go, we have the right and we have the power to change it and dictate how we want to live our lives. Not the governments, not the devil, Jesus Christ.
Mary?
And you know, the revolution in Romania started with the church in Timișoara. A pastor had the courage to talk to the congregation the way this pastor is doing here. I mean, there are not many pastors doing this. And he is courageous in these days to do this kind of meetings. But was a pastor in Timișoara that was talking with the congregation and started to speak against the Communist Party. So they put him under arrest in his house, and the people from the city started to get around the house, so the whole city was going there. It was hard to control them anymore. And then the word was going outside Timișoara, and the whole country was rising up. But the point that I want to make, it started with the church.
Amen. Well, thank you. And wrapping things up, don't forget, Iuliu has his article back here. He didn't tell you some of the best parts. He saved it for you to read the article. So pick up this article out. Also, don't forget Mary's book. They're back there. You can buy a book. It's a fascinating book. I read it. Wonderful book. Also, Iuliu has his cards out there if you want to help him out. So other than that, Pastor?
Yeah, check out the back table and go see Lauren Cangelosi back there at Turning Point USA. Thank you for being here. I want to read just a couple passages in closing. I'll make it quick. They're famous passages. You're going to know them. From Daniel 3, verse 16 to 18. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego replied to him, King Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you in this matter. If we're thrown into the blazing furnace, the God we serve is able to deliver us from it, and he will deliver us from your majesty's hand. But even if he does not, we want you to know, your majesty, that we will not serve your gods or worship the image of gold you have set up. Make the determination now not to bow. The other passage I want to read, also a famous one that you know. Do not be afraid of those who kill the body but cannot kill the soul. Rather be afraid of the one who can destroy both soul and body in hell. We fear God, not people. And I think that's something we just have to make a decision to believe and to do and to act on now, not when we're put in the hot seat. They will come after us. I just have no doubt that this year could very easily turn into a year of very much increased persecution. How many think that could happen? So yes, we want to vote. We want to be informed. We want to do all of those things. We want to speak out. We don't want to be silent, but make the determination. We fear God. We live for him. We talk to our children. We teach our children. We don't let them indoctrinate our children. We speak up, and it starts with the churches. So church is people who believe in God, right? So church, be bold. Be bold. Father, I want to thank you for tonight. I thank you for everyone who's here. I thank you for everyone who spoke up. I thank you for the passion that we've seen represented by people here in the auditorium as well as by Iuliu and Mary. And I thank you for them coming here. Father, I pray that their voice would be heard, not only by us, but by others. We have a lot to learn from them. I thank you for the courage they have demonstrated. I thank you for how you have blessed them, how you've blessed them in this country. I thank you for their families. Father, I pray that you would continue to use them and work through them and use them to warn the American people and raise the church up to be courageous, to be bold, to speak out, and to fear only you. And so continue to bless them that way. Thank you for their ministry. Thank you for what they've done. Thank you for them coming here tonight. Thank you for all those who've come. I thank you for Lauren in the background as well at Turning Point USA Faith booth there. And I pray that as we leave, Father, we need to have a fellowship where we encourage one another and love one another as well. We're in this together. So let us be brothers and sisters united in you, moving forward with courage. Do that work in us and through us. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen. Thank you all for coming.
One last thing tonight. It is being recorded. It was recorded. So I think if you go to Facebook, Bethel Community Church, is that correct, Brandon? And you go to Bethel Community Church on Facebook, you'll see tonight's program. So for those who would like to watch it or share it with their friends, you can do it that way. Other than that, thank you very much for coming.